I come, as you heard, from an organization called Aspen, Pharmacare, which is a 27-year-old organization. We're fairly young. And in those 27 years, we started in a 2-bedroom apartment in Durban. The main bedroom was marketing and sales, and the smaller second bedroom was where finance and admin was held. And the lounge and dining room, which are quite small, doubled up as a meeting room for sales reps. So that's where we started. And today, we're an organization that is the largest pharma company on the African continent, in the Southern Hemisphere. And we are world leaders in general anesthesia, muscle blockers, and occupy position 2 in injectable thrombosis. Now, these are all complex technologies. So I'm saying this not because I'm here to brag or to be glib or be brazen about anything. I'm saying this because if we are smart and put our minds to it, even with the great constraints we have in our country, we can succeed. And I had the privilege of addressing the health and finance ministers of SADC on Thursday in Harare. And I said the same thing to them, because there's this whole thing of we suffer from our own dose of afro-pessimism. And it's important to keep reminding, particularly ourselves, that when we put our minds to it, we are a formidable scientific country. Okay. Aside from what the minister said around being the first to discover the beta variant, and then we did the Omicron variant as well. And because I'm of Greek origin, these variants are all named after the Greek alphabet. And I said, thank goodness it only goes up to 22. Otherwise, South Africa would have discovered 12 of the 22, Minister. So it was a good thing that it stops at 22. But there was a serious story behind that. And the serious story is when we put our minds to it, we can succeed. And I've just given you Aspen as a demonstration of that. We are working on many other things, including vaccines, including manufacturing the GLP-1 weight loss drugs, generics of those. So I think we can safely say that against the odds, South Africa has turned itself into a pharmaceutical scientific jurisdiction against the odds, because we are always and have been known to be a mining, commodities, geography, perhaps financial services. Those have been our strengths, and we are backing the trend. And again, it is possible to buck the trend. Now, let me quickly pivot to why I've linked innovation, industrialization, and manufacturing. When we look at manufacturing in our country, in my sector, the public sector, and I've lamented this to the minister on many an occasion, and he understands this, he gets this. But it's not entirely in his hands, and I hope it will be shortly. But 70% plus of the volume of pharmaceuticals in our country are procured in the public sector. Okay. So we have missed a massive opportunity to leverage public sector volumes to create domestic competitiveness and export orientation. And that means that the line ministry and department that does the procurement has to follow preferential procurement policies in our country. They are there for a good reason, and they need to be followed. That will give a tremendous opportunity for us to turn into an export orientation. So point 1 of this 4-point plan is we have to implement public procurement smartly. That in itself will allow black industrialists to leverage offtake agreements, because when a black industrialist in my sector goes to a commercial bank or even a DFI, so I've got a great plan, I need 50 million rand, 20 million, whatever it is, the number. They say, no, it's wonderful, you've got a great concept, but give us some collateral and then we'll borrow the money. Where are you going to get the collateral from? So, Minister, this thing of 3-year tenders that are heavily biased towards importers is undermining black industrialists in our country. Point number 2, and again I am linking innovation, industrialisation, manufacturing, is that charity starts in your own backyard, at home. It's disappointing to see the market penetration we have in Africa from a farmer perspective, partly because we are dependent on overseas agencies like the WHO pre-qualification to approve our own products in our own continent. How can that be? So all I'm saying is, we've got a regulator in South Africa called SAP, which granted is undercapacitated, but it is a reputable regulator of medicines. Are we saying that if you are fine with registering a product and administering it to a South African patient, it's going to be different when you use it in a patient in Burundi or Rwanda? The answer is, of course, it's not going to be. So we need, with speed and swiftness, to implement mutual recognition and harmonisation across the continent. And if you are going to stick to WHO pre-qualification as a prerequisite for all these international procurement agencies buying drugs for Africa, speaking to what the minister said around Africa's commitment via a Heads of State Bureau resolution, which was passed on 17 May 2022, which called for the continent to procure 60% of its own medicines for its own people by 2040. If we are to be true to that, we need priority review and parallel submissions of WHO PQ. We need to stop talking about it and we need to implement it. And if we cannot get it right, Minister, we have to use our own agencies, our own ML3 agencies on the continent. So that's intervention 2. Intervention 3, it's a very simple 4-point plan. Intervention 3 is that our continent is heavily dependent on procurement by international procurement agencies. So I was very happy that the minister the other day traveled and he met with Gavi. It's very important that the minister did that. So thank you, Minister, for that. Gavi, UNICEF acquire 52% of Africa's vaccines. So the majority, or half, let's say half. Okay. And Africa imports 99% of its vaccines. How can that be? We need reform these international procurement agencies. Their mechanism of procurement needs to be reformed so that they can start procuring from African companies. I can cite the same example, incidentally, with HIV and AIDS. And I'm pleased to tell you, once again, because we were innovative, and it's going to be my 4th point, we were able as Aspen to introduce we pioneered the first generic antiretrovirals on the African continent. We took the prices down from $15,000 per patient per year down to $180. Hundreds of thousands of lives were saved. So point 4 is we need a fit-for-purpose technology transfer model. Fit for purpose for our country. Without mentioning names or Pactral. It's all well and good. Because we've got, to R&D a new medicine is going to cost you a mere $2 to $3 billion. It's clearly out of the pockets of many of our own companies here. Don't go that deep. So you have to rely on smart ways of doing this. And one of those smart ways is licensing and technology transfer agreements. And we've done this successfully at the onset of HIV, and we did it with TB products. But if you don't have the off-takes, as I was saying earlier, then you're going to close capacities and lose capacities in the country. So we've lost all our penicillin manufacturing capacity in the country. We had 3 manufacturing facilities. We've lost our oral contraceptive manufacturing facilities and others. And unless we reverse this, we will lose other important critical capacities in the country. So at the onset of HIV, we had a good model around voluntary licensing, and these models evolved to voluntary license, technology transfer, manufacturing, and distribution agreements. So let me fast track 25 years on, where you're now having new innovations, and unfortunately we've gone backwards in our model. Our model is one that doesn't favor the African continent. So when we enter into these technology transfer agreements, what do I mean by them being fit for purpose for what we've got in our country? It means that we need, if our licensors, partners are committed, it means that we have to have full technology transfer packages, including the intellectual data. Because if we have to go and restart this from scratch, there's a time delay, and by that time the market is saturated and we cannot compete. So my last and final point number 4 is we need technology transfer arrangements, which is a complex area, and I'm probably not covering it well because it's detailed. But we need, let me just say, a fit-for-purpose technology transfer model that works for the capabilities and capacities of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, to wrap up, all I've tried to do today, I've tried to link innovation with industrialization and linking that to manufacturing. And I've provided a very simple 4-point plan of how we can turn the fortunes around of the pharma industry, enhance, improve innovation in the sector, and also retain and grow our manufacturing capacity for export and domestic purposes.